Yeah, Mojo, I got a question from the community here. What's some of the most common misunderstandings in relationships?
The most common reasons for misunderstanding in relationships. It's a good question. Okay, there's a few. I think probably the biggest one, although there's two massive ones, okay? The first one is a misunderstanding around values. So all of us filter our whole reality through our value systems. Now, the most common thing that I see after working with tens of thousands of people coming through our events like Thrive Time or, our communication leadership courses and so on, is that most people, when they're thinking about their partner, they're thinking through their own values. So if I have a very high value on experiences and my second highest value is something like, let's say travel, then what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to buy a motorbike. Actually, let's say it's this, because here's a really good example. First highest value is experiences, second highest value is travel, my third highest value are my mates or my friends. So my partner or my wife comes to me and she says, Michael, I want to go out and buy stuff for the house. And in my head, I'm thinking, if she buys stuff for the house, that's money that I can't spend on buying a motorbike, putting it in the back of the car, and then traveling with my mates and going motorbike riding. And then so my natural response is going to be, oh, look, I don't think that's a good idea. We're better off keeping the money and saving the money. But unconsciously, what I'm really doing is I'm reflecting on how that money is taking something away from my values. Then you might have, let's just say, and I'm just going to generalize here. You've got a female who might have her highest value as being family, then health, and then maybe financial stability. And so let's say the partner who they might have a very high value on career, they might make a good amount of money. Let's say they make $150,000 to $200,000. They might work in the mines or something like that. They come home and they say to their partner, look, I think that we need to buy a new car, because now they're trying to do something that fits their values. And the partner looks at them and says, well, we can't do that. What about the kids' education? What about the kids' school? Like, this is ridiculous, this is stupid. And then so the husband sits there and he goes, but hang on, I work extremely hard and I keep putting money into the family. Yeah, I don't do anything for myself. And then now there's friction and tension in the relationship and a big argument starts. It's not that they're not thinking about each other's values because there's a misunderstanding. And why there's a misunderstanding there's always going to be that friction in a relationship, especially around value systems. When couples get together and they're clear on their values, and this is why I spend so much time in Thrive Time going through value systems, because number one, the majority of society don't understand it. And even those who say, I know my values, normally aren't that clear on them. Once I start to question them, you watch their idea of values fall apart. And that's because psychology, mental health, a lot of human performance or mental health fields, they miscommunicate what values are. They haven't done their research into fields of study like axiology, which are value systems. So until people get really, really clear with their values, it's hard to create alignment in a relationship around their values. So I know now what Jess's highest values are, and she understands what mine are. So when I'm thinking about how I'm going to spend money or how I'm going to do something, I'm thinking about how it relates to Jess's values. So I can go to her and say something like, hey honey, I want to go to Europe next year, but I want to go over there to work and run seminars and do presentations. But after that, what we could do is, while we're over there, because it's a tax write-off, we can now travel around Europe for the next month and a half. She would not say no to that. But if I said I want to go to Europe for a month and just do seminars back to back, she would say, I ain't fucking coming. Okay? Because it pushes against her values. So couples in relationships, until you get clear with the values, there's always going to be friction there. That's the first thing. The second thing, the second biggest thing I think is around communication. So not only are value systems a challenge in a relationship, but you've got communication. Now in society, did you ever learn how to communicate effectively? Like when you went to school, did they teach you communication?
Yeah.
They did? What sort of communication did they teach you? How did they teach you how to communicate effectively?
Between family and friends and stuff like that.
And how did they teach you how to do that?
Through speaking, through connecting with people, stuff like that.
So you learn through watching and observing others. Yeah. There wasn't a class on it though, right? Now the problem with that is that when we think about communication, most people think about how others communicate around them. Now I don't know about you, but my family weren't that great at communicating. So my dad would get home from work and you say, how's your week? And he goes, good. And that's called communication. My mum would get home from work and I'd want to sit on the couch and chill out, and I'd go, how's your day? And she'd go, well, I woke up this morning at 7 a.m. and at 7:05 I decided to get out of bed. And then when I got out of bed, I went and had a coffee, and then I put 2 teaspoons of sugar in. I'm sitting there in my head going, I just want to know if your day's good or if there's a problem, and then just like, no more talking because I just need to chill. And so again, this creates friction in a relationship because there's miscommunication there and a misunderstanding of how we want to communicate. Most people either over communicate or they under communicate. And there are effective communication styles. So for me personally, I just never learned how to communicate effectively because the only way I learned how to communicate is the same way I learned how to walk, which was the same way I learned how to run, which was I just watched other people and just emulated it. Now, if you want to be a professional athlete, you may have already learned how to run, but you put in decades of training over and over again to become an effective runner. Now, communication's the same. You might be able to talk, but that doesn't mean you're an effective communicator. So there are tips and tools to become an effective communicator with different communication styles, with different value systems, with different barriers and different belief systems and those sort of things, that unless people learn how to communicate effectively, they're always going to come up against challenges. And something that we see a lot of, especially in our communication course, so I mean, you obviously know that we do our high performance communication course. Part of the reason why I put that course together was I just found that so many people are either taught incorrectly how to communicate. And I remember doing a course on public speaking, and they got me to stand up there, stand tall, look at someone in the eye, nod my head, yes, yes, talk to everyone in the audience. That's not good communication. That's communicating like a politician, and no one believes politicians. Very few people anyway. Okay, I shouldn't say no one, but very few people. So the communication courses that I went and studied, the majority of them didn't teach me how to be a good communicator in my own style. They didn't teach me how to communicate with others in their style. They just taught me how to communicate like a politician. And the other way that I learned how to communicate was just through emulation. And when I look at my friends and my family, they weren't good communicators. So yeah, I think that they're the 2 biggest issues. Number 1, value systems and a misunderstanding of value systems, which creates so much tension in relationships. And I just find that I would say 99.999% of people who come to our events like Thrive Time say that they know their values or they don't know their values at all. That's a problem. Sorry, I should rephrase that. They either don't know their values and are very unclear on them. That's a problem. Or they think they know their values, but when I question them about their values, it's not their values. They're all confused about their values, and what they think are their values aren't really their values. So I think that's a massive issue. And then the second thing is just superficial communication and not knowing how to communicate effectively, and that creates a lot of tension in relationships.